A Mochi moment from Sadie, who writes, I'm not crying, you're crying. This is what I said during my first appointment with my physician at Mochi, because I didn't have to convince him I needed a GLP-1. He understood, and I felt supported, not judged. I came for the weight loss and stayed for the empathy. Thanks, Sadie. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Sadie is a Mochi member compensated for her story.
What kind of man would let this happen to his family?
Inspired by shocking actual events.
I'm working on a story about the Murdochs. Their abuses of power are playing out in real time.
Starring Academy Award winner Patricia Arquette and Jason Clarke.
It's only cheating if you get caught.
Hulu original series, Murdoch, Death in the Family, premieres October 15th on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+. For bundle subscribers, terms apply.
I'm Dr. Megan Sachs.
And I'm Dr. Amy Schlossberg, and we're the hosts of Campus Killings.
Summer break is over, and we're happy to announce that we're back with an all-new 4th season of Campus Killings.
On Campus Killings, we tackle some of the most shocking and disturbing cases to take place on or near school grounds.
We're not only educators, but we're also criminologists. And in each episode of Campus Killings, we call on our experience to not only discuss what happened in each case, but to shed light on how it affected those involved and what could have been done differently to prevent the crimes from happening.
We're excited to share that we've had so much wonderful feedback from our listeners and so many cases suggested to us that our 4th season is filled with cases all suggested by listeners just like you.
If you're new to the show, we have dozens of episodes already available to binge on so you can catch up. We'd love for you to give our show a try.
Tune in every other Saturday for new episodes of Campus Killings. Campus Killings is available everywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe now so you don't miss an episode.
You're listening to DNA ID, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, Missing Persons, Scene of the Crime, Zodiac Speaking,
Beyond Bizarre True Crime, Campus Killings,
and
Killer Communications.
All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
This episode contains explicit discussion of child abuse and murder. Listener discretion is strongly advised. On June 13, 1972, a 14-year-old boy in Lorton, Virginia, needed air in his bike tire. He wheeled his bike in the direction of the local gas station on the country road near his home, and the route took him across the very small, low Colchester Bridge. Looking over the railing, the teen saw a small child's body in shallow Massey Creek under the bridge. The boy quickly approached a nearby Washington Gas and Light Company worker and told him what he'd seen. Then he ran home and told his mom, who called the police to the Colchester Bridge near I-95 and Fort Belvoir in southern Fairfax County, Virginia. In the shallow creek, responding officers found the nude body of a black male child. A contemporary black and white photo from the Fairfax County PD archives shows 2 uniformed officers and a suited detective standing on a very small bridge, the country road kind that has a crude wooden railing and crosses just a small creek. The men are peering down into the creek, the opening of which is surrounded by overgrown brush. I hate to think about what they were looking at below. The black male child was removed from the creek and sent to the Fairfax medical examiner for an autopsy. Dr. Claude Cooper estimated the child's age at between 4 and 6 years old. He was nearly 4 feet tall, weighed 50 pounds, and had black hair and brown eyes. The child's cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. The autopsy concluded the boy had died from severe head injuries inflicted by a blunt weapon. He had been beaten to death, and just about 6 hours earlier. I was told that investigators' reports drawing upon the autopsy report reflected that based on the damage to the child's head, it was more likely that the weapon was someone's fists rather than an actual tool or instrument. There was no evidence of sexual abuse, but the boy did have several cuts and possibly bones that were in the process of healing or had healed. Someone had been abusing this boy for an extended period of time. However, it was noted that the child had food in his stomach, indicating that he had eaten fairly recently. The Fairfax PD put a lot of man-hours into this case and trying to identify John Lorton Doe, as the boy became known. Officers canvassed the area where the boy was found, knocking on doors and asking if anyone had seen anything. The agency sent teletypes to other agencies all over the East Coast, informing them about the deceased child in their jurisdiction. It seemed unfathomable that no one had reported a missing child. Many comparisons were made, but no missing children reports that matched were located. After some time, a local church group offered to pay for burial for John Lorton Doe in a local cemetery. The group raised funds for a headstone and gave the child the name Charles Lee Charlet. He was buried at Coleman Cemetery in Alexandria, Virginia. And there wasn't much more that 1972 investigators could do, so the case remained quiet for the next 30 years. In 2004, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, joined the case, creating and distributing a facial reconstruction of what the child may have looked like. This was one of the first uses by NCMEC of computer-assisted facial reconstruction technology. The organization has said that it received more tips on this case than any other in Virginia after they released this computer-generated sketch, but none led to his being identified. Cold case detectives never really let go of this case and continued to try different innovative tactics over the years that might work to identify John Lorton Doe, and that included embracing scientific testing methods. One of the original detectives, Detective Corporal Dan Mustaine, had the foresight to retain hair samples from the child's autopsy. More than 30 years later, in 2004, the FBI was able to obtain mitochondrial DNA from the hairs. Now, they had some genetic information about the child, but there was no match in the CODIS Unidentified Human Remains database. No one was looking for this boy. Virginia-based NCMEC continued their efforts to identify the little boy found in the organization's own backyard, and the Fairfax authorities pushed to keep the public's eye on the case. A 2009 article in the D.C. Examiner is titled, quote, "Forces Across Nation Strive to Solve 1972 Beating Death of Boy," end quote. The article says that a new, lifelike image of the boy had just been released in hopes that someone would recognize him. A quote from the article, "A forensic artist used pictures taken by police and knowing the changes that occur immediately after death, the facial muscles relax, the face flattens out, and the eyes go blank. We tried to restore him with that spark of life," said Jerry Nance, supervisor of the Forensic Services Unit at NCMEC. "Unfortunately, this is a very old case, one of our oldest. But there's the off chance that a grandmother may remember the face or someone sees his picture and says, 'That's my cousin,'" Nance said. "We still keep looking." "There is always hope," Fairfax County Police Officer Shelley Broderick said. Indeed. In December 2012, John Lorton Doe finally got an entry in NamUs as UP 10859. The entry described the boy as being at least 4 years old, no older than 6. He was 50 pounds and 45 inches tall, revised downward from initial reports of 48 inches. He was circumcised. In 2013, NCMEC's Team Adam revisited the case with local officials. Per their website, Team Adam was formed in 2003 as a free resource provided to law enforcement agencies across the country. Named after Adam Walsh, the abducted and murdered son of co-founders John and Reve Walsh, Team Adam provides rapid, on-site assistance to law enforcement agencies and families in critical cases of missing children. Around 2016, Fairfax County investigators decided to try to get autosomal DNA from John Lorton Doe. They set out to obtain a search warrant to exhume the child and collect samples. But this effort hit a brick wall when it was discovered that John Lorton Doe's tombstone had washed away in a severe flooding storm that struck the area in 2012. Poor cemetery records from 1972 did not reflect sufficient information for would-be exhumers to determine where exactly the child was buried. They can't just go into his cemetery and start digging, absent specific grave location information. And so the exhumation was called off. John Lorton Doe was lost again. Yes, I know it's only October, but the holidays sneak up fast. One of the first signs is the holiday shopping catalogs that come in the mail. And of those, my favorite is always Uncommon Goods. They have such a fun and eclectic selection of gifts for everyone on your list. Uncommon Goods makes holiday shopping stress-free and joyful, with thousands of one-of-a-kind gifts you can't find anywhere else. What's amazing about Uncommon Goods is just that. Their products are uncommon, special and unique items you won't find anyplace else. Many are handmade, crafted by independent artists and small businesses in small batches of limited edition goodies. For example, as you know, my son is a musician. He wrote the music for this podcast. On Uncommon Goods, I found a set of 4 different guitar-themed glasses that he is going to love. I've never seen anything like them anywhere else. Uncommon Goods has something for everyone. And when you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. And what makes you really feel good about shopping at Uncommon Goods is that with every purchase, they give back $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice. They've donated more than $3 million to date. So shop early, have fun, and cross some names off your list today. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/DNAID. That's uncommongoods.com/DNAID for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary.
What kind of man would let this happen to his family?
Inspired by shocking actual events.
I'm working on a story about the Murdochs. Their abuses of power are playing out in real time.
Starring Academy Award winner Patricia Arquette and Jason Clarke.
It's only cheating if you get caught.
Hulu original series, Murdoch, Death in the Family, premieres October 15th on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus. For bundle subscribers, terms apply.
Hi, I'm Morgan. I have 3 kids. I have an IQ of 160. I work with the cops.
You're a cop?
No, they do sign my paychecks.
Caitlin Olsen returns in High Potential, the #1 drama.
She was abducted. You knew that already, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought it'd be nice to let you have this one.
And one of the best new crime procedurals.
You're waiting on me to leave so you can poke around without a warrant, aren't you?
Yeah.
High Potential, new Tuesdays, 10/9 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
The next few years saw 2 significant rule-outs via DNA comparisons. John Lorton Doe's mitochondrial DNA was inconsistent with that of 2 children who were compared to him. One of these was Solomon Rose. According to the Charlie Project, 3-year-old Solomon was last seen at the Mandawan Shopping Center in Baltimore, Maryland, on October 1st, 1972. His mother had taken him and his 7-year-old cousin to the shopping center and left them unattended for a few minutes while she went to cash a check. When she returned, she found her niece watching TV at Sears. Solomon was gone and has never been heard from again. He remains missing. The other child whose DNA was compared to John Lorton Doe was George Barksdale. George was last seen playing on the steps of the United Church House of Prayer for All People at Preston Street and Argyle Avenue in Baltimore, Maryland, between 8 and 9 p.m. on April 21, 1969. George disappeared and has never been heard from again. Authorities believe he was abducted by a non-family member. He also remains missing. Okay, now for the modern investigation. In 2021, Fairfax County investigators knew that they still had John Lorton Doe's hair in evidence. The more than 50-year-old hair was in a small evidence envelope, and time and testing had reduced the hairs to just a few nearly microscopic shards. But with the use of a NCMEC grant, the Fairfax County authorities felt it was worth a try. They sent the hairs to Estrella Forensics, known for their ability to obtain autosomal DNA from rootless hairs. Detective Melissa Wallace, who solved this case, said at a press conference, quote, "When we got the hair, it was little specks like razor stubble. Estrella said, we prefer 2 centimeters. And I said, I don't even know if it's 2 millimeters. And they said, send it anyway." Here is a statement released by Estrella after a successful extraction. Quote, "Using a few millimeters of rootless hair collected during the original autopsy and advanced forensic methods, our lab developed a DNA profile that led to this long-awaited breakthrough. This case was initially funded as part of a grant initiative, which allowed Estrella to offer no-cost services to law enforcement and nonprofit organizations working cold cases," end quote. So as you heard, Estrella used literal millimeters of hair to obtain a SNP profile of John Lorton Doe so that an IgG analysis could proceed. Estrella and NCMEC had an ongoing partnership with Innovative Forensic Investigations, and they were requested to do the IgG. Upon entering the SNP into GEDmatch, the genealogists located a top match who shared about 700 centimorgans with John Lorton Doe. This was a suspected maternal cousin named Lisa. As you all know, 700 centimorgans is a very promising start. The genealogists recommended obtaining a reference sample from Lisa's mom, Carol. So Detective Wallace and her partner, Detective John Long, drove to Philadelphia and contacted Carol. She was willing to provide a buccal swab, which, when loaded into GEDmatch, showed she shared DNA with the child consistent with being a biological aunt. And Carol was a font of information. She said the missing child was likely her nephew, Carl Matthew Bryant, the son of her sister, Vera Bryant. Carl had disappeared in 1972. So, how to confirm this? Where was the suspected mother, Vera? Vera had died in 1980. But this time it was easy to locate Vera's gravesite. Investigators proceeded with an exhumation of Vera Bryant. Estrella requested 3 confirmatory samples: hair, a jawbone including teeth, and an ankle bone. The hairs were sent to Estrella, but DNA testing failed because the hair was too degraded as a result of the embalming processes. So they moved on to the osseous samples, and Estrella was finally able to obtain results after 9 months of testing. In April 2025, John Lorton Doe was confirmed to be Vera's son, Carl Matthew Bryant. Fairfax County PD held a press conference on August 4, 2025, announcing the breakthrough in the case. Chief of Police Kevin Davis credited IGG for the resolution of the 53-year-old mystery of who little John Lorton Doe was. Detective Melissa Wallace was asked how emotional this resolution was for the case investigators. She said, quote, "This case was always important to me. I have my own son. I think most of us are parents here. To see the extent of that boy's injuries and what he had suffered through, I'm happy to be here today announcing that at least we've identified him. He can have his name. We can get him back his name on his gravestone, and the family can have some semblance of closure or resolution."
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I don't know if you've heard, but Mint's premium wireless is $15 a month. But I'd like to offer one other perk. We have no stores. That means no small talk. Crazy weather we're having. No, it's not. It's just weather. It is an introvert's dream. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
What kind of man would let this happen to his family?
Inspired by shocking actual events.
I'm working on a story about the Murdochs. Their abuses of power are playing out in real time.
Starring Academy Award winner Patricia Arquette and Jason Clarke.
It's only cheating if you get caught.
Hulu original series, Murdoch, Death in the Family, premieres October 15th on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus. For bundle subscribers, terms apply.
Hi, I'm Morgan. I have 3 kids. I have an IQ of 160. I work with the cops.
You're a cop?
No, but they do sign my paychecks.
Caitlin Olsen returns in High Potential, the #1 drama.
She was abducted. You knew that already, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought it'd be nice to let you have this one.
And one of the best new crime procedurals.
You're waiting on me to leave so you can poke around without a warrant, aren't you?
Yeah.
High Potential, new Tuesdays 10/9 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
So what do we know about Carl? Carl Matthew Bryant was born on May 26, 1968 to mom Vera Bryant. No father was listed on Carl's birth certificate. Detective Wallace and her partner, John Long, collected DNA from a man named by the family as possibly Carl's father, but it was not a match. The identity of Carl's father remains unknown. Carl's date of birth of May 1968 means that when he was found murdered in June of 1972, he was indeed 4 years old. His height of 45 to 48 inches tall put him at quite tall for his age. Carl's Aunt Carol, his mother Vera's sister, told the investigators that in 1972, Carl had lived with his mother in Philadelphia. In June of that year, right around the time of Carl's murder, Vera and her boyfriend James Hedgepeth traveled by car from Philadelphia to Middlesex County, Virginia, to visit Hedgepeth's family. Carl was with them when they left. But there was more. Also with Carl, Vera, and Hedgepeth was Carl's 6-month-old brother, James Bryant. This was a shock to the detectives. Of course, they had known nothing about James. The investigators tracked down a female relative of Hedgepeth's who remembered Vera and Hedgepeth coming for a short visit from Philadelphia in June of 1972. The couple had no children with them when they arrived. The female relative recalled that she had been told that Vera was pregnant, but knew nothing of the children and never saw or heard anything about them during this visit. Vera's sister Carol related that she had last seen Vera at Thanksgiving 1972 and she was with Hedgepeth, but they did not have Carl or James with them. The couple told Vera's family that they had left the kids in Virginia with Hedgepeth's family. James and Carl were not with family in Philadelphia and were not with family in Virginia. Carl was found in a stream under a bridge just off the route that the couple would have taken to Virginia in that June visit. Where was the baby James? Unfortunately, no one ever reported Carl or James missing. If they had, it is very likely that Carl would have been identified. Fairfax officials said explicitly in the press conference that they believe that both boys were murdered somewhere between Pennsylvania and Virginia on June 13, 1972. Vera Bryant and her boyfriend James Hedgepeth were responsible for Carl's murder and most likely for James's as well. Vera Bryant was born in 1948 in Fairfax, Virginia. She was only 24 years old in the summer of 1972 when she left Philadelphia, where she was living, and went to Virginia with her boyfriend James Hedgepeth and her 2 sons. Her family in Philadelphia next saw her at Thanksgiving 1972 when she told her family she had left the kids in Virginia. Detective Wallace found out that there was a big family blow-up at this Thanksgiving because Vera's relatives did not like James Hedgepeth. They told Detective Wallace that they didn't detect any visible signs of physical abuse of Vera by her significantly older boyfriend, but that her vivacious and dynamic personality had completely changed since she hooked up with him, and she had become submissive, meek, and quiet. Classic signs of domestic violence and coercive control. Interestingly, Carol told the detectives that she had babysat both boys, James and Carl, until the day they left, and she never saw any signs of physical abuse on their bodies. But since signs were detected at Carl's autopsy, we know they were there. After the Thanksgiving 1972 argument, Vera's family never heard from her again until in 1980 when Carol received a visit from the Philly PD informing her that her sister, just 32 years old, was found dead. Vera had not even known that Hedgepeth and Vera were still living in the city. The circumstances of Vera Bryant's death are incredibly bizarre. Detective Wallace told me that Hedgepeth had landed himself in a Philadelphia jail for a DUI, and his car was towed. Vera was with him, and she set out to walk home to pick up her paycheck to bond him out, because, of course. But she never made it to the house. She was found dead in a hole in a construction site. Police chalked her death up to an accidental drowning. Yep. There's definitely more to that story, but Hedgepeth did not do it. He had the ironclad alibi of being in jail, and he obviously had incentive for Vera to return safe and sound. Vera took her secrets about her missing children with her to her grave. She never had any more kids. I don't really want to talk about James Hedgepeth, but I suppose we have to. James Lee Hedgepeth was born on August 15, 1932, in Nash, North Carolina. His parents were Mary Etta Ricks, age 18, and Glenn Hedgepeth, age 22. It was his mom, Mary, whom Hedgepeth and Vera were traveling to see. She lived in Middlesex County, Virginia, and died in 1993. Hedgepeth himself lived until the ripe old age of 84, dying in March of 2017. Hedgepeth was very familiar with the Northern Virginia area. He spent a lot of his life living in nearby Washington, D.C., and he was trouble from a very early age, dropping out of school after the 6th grade. The relative Detective Wallace spoke with described him as a bully, but that doesn't even begin to describe it. Hedgepeth had a violent criminal history. Here is an excerpt from an article from Washington, D.C.'s Evening Star, where my mother was a news intern. This article was dated January 1962. A district man was released Thursday from St. Elizabeth's Hospital, where he had been committed after his arrest for armed robbery, end quote. Yes, this was James Hedgepeth. He had been committed to St. Elizabeth's, a mental hospital for severely ill patients where John Hinckley was incarcerated, in November 1950, after he was found not guilty by reason of insanity on an armed robbery charge. Hedgepeth was in and out of St. Elizabeth's for a time and then was placed there more permanently in 1954 after some more armed robberies. Hedgepeth was granted convalescent leaves from St. Elizabeth's starting in 1960, and then conditional release in May of 1962. This was work release, where he was released for daily work and returned to St. Elizabeth's at night. On the work release, he got a job as a chef in a D.C. restaurant, but that lasted only a few days. Within 3 days of his release, he was arrested and charged with murder in the shooting of a dance hall patron. Now, 29-year-old Hedgepeth had purchased a gun from a busboy at the restaurant where he was on work release, and he used it to shoot Daniel Robinson, age 21. The shooting occurred after an argument at Adair's dance hall in Deanwood Park. Robinson broke the jukebox and refused to leave when the owner told him to. He dared anyone to try and throw him out. And Hedgepeth pulled out his gun and pushed Robinson. They both fell through a glass door. After falling, Hedgepeth deliberately shot Robinson in the stomach. Hedgepeth was arrested at the home of his aunt, Doll Cooper, the Evening Star reported. Hedgepeth claimed in Prince George's Circuit Court that he shot Robinson because Robinson had been trying to rob him, quote, because I have a reputation for carrying large sums of money on me. Doubtful. Then he changed tactics and made a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. But he ended up retracting that plea and pleading guilty to second-degree murder, and in July 1962 was sentenced to 15 years in prison in Maryland. He obviously didn't do anything close to that amount of time, because by summer of 1972, 10 years later, he was with Vera Bryant and her 2 children.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I don't know if you've heard, but Mint's premium wireless is $15 a month. But I'd like to offer one other perk. We have no stores. That means no small talk. Crazy weather we're having. No, it's not. It's just weather. It is an introvert's dream. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
What kind of man would let this happen to his family?
Inspired by shocking actual events.
I'm working on a story about the Murdochs. Their abuses of power are playing out in real time.
Starring Academy Award winner Patricia Arquette and Jason Clarke.
It's only cheating if you get caught.
Hulu original series, Murdoch, Death in the Family, premieres October 15th on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus. For bundle subscribers, terms apply.
Hi, I'm Morgan. I have 3 kids. I have an IQ of 160. I work with the cops.
You're a cop?
No, but they do sign my paychecks.
Caitlin Olsen returns in High Potential, the #1 drama.
She was abducted. You knew that already, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought it'd be nice to let you have this one.
And one of the best new crime procedurals.
You're waiting on me to leave so you can poke around without a warrant, aren't you?
Yeah. High Potential, new Tuesdays 10, 9 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Even though James, Hedgepeth, Vera, and Carl are all deceased, the story is not over. In the press conference announcing Carl Bryant's identity, Fairfax County authorities emphasized that they were prioritizing finding Carl's little brother James, just about 6 months old, in June of 1972 when he vanished. James has a father listed on his January 1972 birth certificate. The name is Ronald Sanders. Detectives have never been able to locate any Ronald Sanders who fathered a child with Vera Bryant, and they don't know whether this was a made-up name. Vera's sister Carol suspects that James's father was possibly James Hedgepeth. So again, we know what happened to Carl. What happened to James? Unfortunately, detectives believe that he met the same fate as his brother. Carl was beaten to death by the fists of someone big and strong, and it happened as the foursome was traveling from Philadelphia to Virginia. And then his body was dumped in the creek under the Colchester Bridge. Not a great deviation from the route the group would have driven from Philadelphia to Middlesex County, Virginia. They would have taken I-95 south from Philly, taken the exit to Lorton, and made one of the first rights off Route 1 to the creek. Carl was found with a full stomach, and investigators wonder if the group stopped at a fast food place along 95 South. But it's also possible Carl was fed before they set out. Philadelphia to that area of Virginia is only about a 2.5-hour drive. One wonders what happened in that car to make someone fatally beat Carl. So again, where is baby James? 1972 investigators' records reflect that they searched the area around Massey Creek where Carl was found for several days in June of 1972. But of course, the detectives were searching for clues as to the identity of the dead child. They didn't know they were looking for another child. I asked Detective Wallace whether James could have been dumped in the same spot and then washed downstream. He was small, after all. Massey Creek empties into the Occoquan River leading to the Potomac. If that happened, he might never have been found. But Detective Wallace tells me that the water in Massey Creek was quite shallow at that time. She believes Carl was dumped over the bridge railing where he was found. There was no water flow to carry him away. We discussed whether it was likely James was deposited in the same location versus being placed in a different spot. Obviously, if he was also right there in the stream, the contemporary investigators would have found him. But we wondered whether perhaps the infant was thrown or carried farther into the woods. Carl weighed 50 pounds and would have been heavy to carry. The easiest solution was to dump him over the railing. But the baby was another story. If he was thrown into the woods and the investigators searching woods and banks near Massey Creek missed him, it would be very easy for the small body to be carried off by birds of prey or other animals, or to decompose quickly in the summer heat and disappear into the natural environment. Modern investigators have not conducted searches of the area. More than half a century has passed, and the landscape has been altered. The chances of finding anything are virtually non-existent. At the press conference, Fairfax authorities requested assistance from the public. Quote, "We ask for the public's help in filling in the missing information," said Fairfax County Police Assistant Chief Brooke Wright. She continued, "Perhaps somebody witnessed something along that route that day, or maybe Vera or James confided in someone before they had died. Maybe another jurisdiction had recovered a 6-month-old baby's remains and didn't have a way to tie it to this case." Fairfax authorities are also looking to speak with anyone who can give them any information on James Hedgepeth or anyone he might have talked to. This case illustrates how cases like this one can be impossible to solve, especially given the limited resources at the disposal of law enforcement in 1972. Vera and Hedgepeth and little James and Carl were just passing through the area. They had no connection to Fairfax County. It appears the dump site for Carl was chosen at random. Who knows where Vera and Hedgepeth chose to put James, and whether the boys were together or separated. It's impossible to know exactly what happened to the boys on that fateful interstate journey, although we can all make a solid, educated guess. Hedgepeth was a violent psychopath who had once been declared legally insane. His violent tendencies were very pronounced, and although there are no known witnesses to the abuse inflicted on Carl, we know that it was happening. Whether or not Vera was complicit in the murder of her children, again, we will never know. This case really emphasizes the human element of cold case police work. Detectives are making it their mission to try to find James, an infant who vanished more than half a century ago. And his older brother Carl has been buried somewhere in a Virginia cemetery for more than 50 years. There are no actual remains to be returned to his family. Yet it was important to everyone who even heard of this case that he be given his name back and his killers be publicly named. There are no existing photos of Carl Bryant in life. The Victims Services section of the Fairfax PD is hoping to install a memorial bench in Carl's name at Coleman Cemetery, where he is known to be buried. It's a small gesture that carries an awful lot of weight. If you have any information about Carl or James Bryant, Vera Bryant, or James Hedgepeth, please call the Fairfax Police Department's Major Crimes Bureau at 703-246-7800, option 2. Thanks for listening to this episode of DNA ID. Before you leave, please let me tell you about some important things related to the show. If you'd like to support this podcast, and in the process, get access to early and ad-free episodes, as well as bonus content like crime scene photos, you can sign up for a Patreon subscription for only $5 a month by heading over to patreon.com/DNAID. Of course, you're welcome to contribute more than $5 a month. We rely on Patreon funds to pay for the original source materials I use to research each episode. If Patreon isn't your thing, you can also show your support with an AbJack Insider subscription through Apple Podcasts. It costs just $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year. Your AbJack Insider subscription will give you the same benefits for not only DNA ID, but for all of the shows on the AbJack network, like Killer Communications and Campus Killings. Head over to Apple Podcasts and find the DNA ID page, or look for the AbJack network to get started. If you're on social media, we'd love to interact with you there. DNA ID is on every major social media platform. Search your favorite platforms for DNA ID Podcast to find us. We also have a YouTube channel, and our website is dnaidpodcast.com. You can find links to all of these anytime in our show notes. If you need to reach the show, contact us by emailing dnaidpodcast@gmail.com. Finally, if you want to pick up some fun DNA ID merch and represent the show, visit the store at www.customizedgirl.com/s/DNA ID podcast. DNA ID is researched, written, and hosted by me, Jessica Betancourt. It's produced by me and Mike Morford of AbJack Entertainment. Music by Connor Betancourt.